Hi everyone, I am here to bring you a low impact practice. So this is for days that maybe you've been out running and your joints can't take any further impact, or maybe you are feeling an inflammation in knees or wrists or your back or your shoulders or some place where it's just no fun to be on hands and knees or in down dog or a plank or those types of places. This is a practice that will still give you the benefits of some opening, some lengthening in the spine, and also some strengthening in the spine, the belly, and the chest. Also, it will help your nervous system the way any yoga practice will. So it'll bring those calming, cooling effects to the wired nervous system that we have a tendency to be. I'm a psoriatic arthritic. I have been since I was 12, so there are days where I definitely modify my practice based on how much weight I want to load into my arthritic joints. So this is the kind of practice that you can really do whether you have any kind of inflammation or not, if you just want to take it a little easier on your joints. So coming to a seat. For this practice, you'll want a stool or a chair. If you're using a chair, make sure that the chair is hard, not super, super soft. Like, don't use your most cozy, squishy armchair. And so a little bit of firmness to the chair and then or stool. And you will also want maybe a blanket or a cushion if you decide that you're going to get down on the ground at some point. So join me. I'm going to be sitting on a stool. So, starting by noticing where you are, which is how I start pretty much all of my classes because it's the most important and arguably the hardest part. We are always running, we are always multitasking. Right now, in order to really ask our body to soften, we need to know that we are not in that manic, panic type of rat race that our lives can be. So getting into as comfortable of a seat as you can find, relaxing the feet into the floor and trying to feel that sense of gravity in a more aware way. So we have gravity all the time, obviously, but every time we notice it, we can start to feel that softness of our muscles because we don't have to hold on so tightly, we're being held. So first notice that under the feet, under the seat. Notice gravity at your shoulders and relax the jaw. And then start to deepen the inhale and the exhale. Closing your eyes or finding your drishti, your yogic gaze, that can be on the ground, maybe 3 to 4 feet in front of you. Softening your forehead. Trying to notice how it feels to take these deep, slow breaths. Softening the inner thighs, relaxing the belly. Finding as much softness in this moment as you can find. Good. One more breath. Good, and then just drop your chin down into your chest. And we're going to start to move into modified cat-cow. Hands to the fronts of the knees. As you tuck your chin into your chest, think about curving your spine, tucking the navel in towards the back. Think about the width across the shoulder blades. And then reverse that, drawing the shoulder blades together. Lift up out of the waist a little bit. Think about the heart lifting up. Reach through the chin. The extension of the chin will stretch out the throat. It helps lubricate and open up the thyroid gland. And then really squeeze the chin down into the chest as you curve through the spine. Move with the breath. You should be feeling your pelvic bone tilting a little bit. Obviously, when you're seated, there's not as much space for movement as when your sit bones are off the ground. But you should still feel that little bit of movement rocking and tilting of the pelvic bone. Good. And then neutral spine. Take the left arm straight up to the sky, draw the shoulder blade down into the socket, take that left hand to the outside of the right knee, and then just pivot. Now if your chair or your stool has a back, you can actually use that to hold on to and kind of leverage yourself, but don't yank. This is just kind of a support structure, not anything that you're using to force. Otherwise, hands to the stool, lift up through the heart. Most of us have more flexibility in the low back because the bones are just bigger down there. Try to incorporate the thoracic spine, that mid-back area, by lifting up out of the crown of the head, rolling that right shoulder back. Lift the heart. And then notice your breathing. Inhale. Lift the heart. Exhale, maybe twist a little deeper. Inhale. Exhale. So this is really healthy for the health of our spine. It's also really beneficial to our digestive system. Try not to yank your neck around. So if you are looking back here and the whole moment is defined by the sensation of your neck, then just look forward and let your chin fall into the front shoulder. 2 more breaths here. Think about the spine getting longer every breath. Good, and then release. Roll up shoulders. Good, lift the right knee and just interlace the fingers at the front of the kneecap and pulse the knee in. So this, depending on the day, might be all the sensation you need. And the sensation that maybe you're feeling is something in the hip, something in the knee, something in the leg. Maybe that's it. In yoga, it's very important that you don't move through anything that's suddenly hot or sharp. So maybe it's a dull, achy feeling. Sometimes that's not the worst thing in the world, but nothing suddenly sharp. And if you are the owner of arthritic joints, you definitely know what I'm talking about. You don't push past that kind of thing. But if you're here and everything feels comfy, then maybe you externally rotate this knee. So the left hand goes towards the right shin bone here. Just start to point that right knee towards the right, and then just rock it around. You can have that right hand anywhere that makes sense for you. Your body will kind of make that decision for you. Maybe it's by your hip, maybe it's on your right knee. Circle the knee out. This is something that you can do really anywhere. I've gotten to be so comfortable with being socially awkward, so at like dinner, no matter where I am, it's like, my hip's hurting. Better whip out those hip circles. Because we want to be mobile and not in chronic pain. This helps. So if nothing is like screaming at you, there's nothing suddenly sharp or hot happening in the hip, the knee, then maybe you rest that right foot on the top of the left knee. Now, if you're feeling any kind of sharpness here and it's like, oh, so close, kind of felt like I was getting somewhere dreamy, but that's too far, then you can lower that left knee. So you can extend it, you can kind of hop it in, until you start to feel like that sweet spot, wherever it is. Start to notice that the knee is still comfortable, and then maybe add a little bit of movement. One of the ways that my yoga practice, both my personal home practice and the way that I teach, has been formed, is that I don't spend a lot of time still. I don't spend a lot of time still. Not that there's anything wrong with holding poses for long periods of time. I think there's a lot of value in that. But the reason why I like movement is because my joints need almost constant lubrication. And movement gets that sense of fluidity into my joints. And I feel like the Tin Man if I don't do that. So if you notice here, I'm shifting side to side, I'm lifting the knee up and down. And that can be really helpful for joints that are in pain. If you find a sweet spot or you prefer stillness, this is about plugging in and knowing what your preferences are. So then hold it if you are feeling like there's a sweet spot. If you're feeling like everything here is totally within your comfort zone and there's nothing that your joints are hating, you can start to fold here. And if you're folding, try to keep your spine straight. So every time we fold, there is this kind of conditioning where it's like, oh, I'm supposed to get as far down as I can. So like this, try not to do that. Think about straight spine, anchor the sit bones, and hold. So the heart comes forward. So that will definitely have some sensation in that right head. I'm pretty sure no matter who you are, that'll get into it to some extent. Couple breaths here, remembering that if it starts to feel like, ooh, it isn't quite right, my joint's starting to kind of hiss at this, then give it some movement. You know, move up and down, side to side. Our bodies are this extraordinary mechanism where you can't move one part of the body without, you know, this other part of the body responding and reacting. And you don't have to understand all of it. You don't need to have some doctorate in anatomy to feel it. If you're moving around, you'll notice if you go in one direction or another, suddenly miles away in another part of your body, there's something going on that feels a little bit happier and more blissful. So keep that in mind. Okay, so from here, gently remove that leg, up through the knees a little bit, roll out the shoulders, and then right arm goes straight up, right shoulder down into the socket, right hand to the outer edge of that left knee, lift up out of the heart, left hand comes behind you, maybe hold on to the back of the chair if you're using a chair, maybe pressing the back of the stool or something along those lines. And then really think about what part of the spine is twisting. It shouldn't just be the base. Think about every single bone growing taller and then rotating. Roll through that left shoulder. Breathe. Use your breath to inflate some height into the twist. And then on the exhale, there's extra space to twist into it. Don't pull your neck. So let it just kind of droop if you need to. Keep breathing. One more. Good, coming back to facing forward, drawing that left knee in, interlace the fingers. Don't just assume that what your body wanted to do on the first side is it's going to be totally kosher on the second. It just doesn't work that way, especially if you have any kind of inflammation in the body. There are going to be days that one hip doesn't match the other, and there are probably going to be most days. And if you think about how many variables there are in our lives, it makes sense. How do you sleep? You know, what side do you lean towards while you're walking? What side do you carry your purse on? Like, you know, if you've got small kids, I remember my right side, my forearm was like Popeye from the baby hook, and the other side couldn't like lift anything. It's like, we're asymmetrical, that's the point. Okay, so maybe you start to rotate through that left knee. Listen to both the hip and the knee and the back. Take it slowly enough that you can kind of accommodate. And there's lots of different angles between here and here. There's lots of different places to be. So pay attention and don't yank your knee and then be limping around later, because that's not what you're doing this for. You're doing this to feel better, not worse. So take your time. And like I said before, this is something that can really be done while you're watching television. This can be done while you're eating your lunch. It really doesn't have to be just yoga time. I can lay my mat out and do things to make my body feel better. At that point, no other time. It's just moving your joints around this way is really available to you whenever you want to do it. So maybe you rest the foot on the top of the other thigh. Now, you can stick with that other movement the whole time. Or once you're here, try to notice, does that right leg need to lower a little bit? Does that help? Does that increase or decrease the sensation in this hip? Can I calibrate it specifically for this hip today? How's my ankle feeling? A little bit of flex in that heel will help keep that ankle happy and also the knee happy. And then maybe you just breathe. Notice the sensation that might be there. If you want a little more sensation, that's when you start to fold. Listening to all of the joints as you go. Relaxing the jaw. Trying to think about the length of the spine. One more breath. Good. Come on up. And if you're folded, take that foot out. Pop up the knees. Roll out the shoulders. Good. And now we're going to stand up. Have something that might bring the ground up to you a little bit. So I don't have my blocks out. It doesn't really have to be anything too fancy. Stack of cushions, stack of books, Tupperware or something. Just gonna do that. Okay. So stand up straight. Most of us, when we stand up straight, we compensate in one way or another. So try to notice, am I standing really straight? Are my feet next door to one another, totally parallel? One isn't in front of the other. I'm pressing into the pinky toe edge, the big toe edge, and that helps activate the legs in a way that supports the joints. And the importance of that is that when our quadriceps and our hamstrings are strong, our knees, the pressure gets kind of pulled off of the knees. So strengthening those parts of the body is important to joint health. Roll out the shoulders a little bit. Good. Take the palms, flip them open, inhale, lift up. Keep the hip points pointing forward, shoulders down away from the ears. Exhale, fold forward, a little bit of a micro bend in the knee, touch whatever it is in front of you. Forward fold. Keep the knees bent as deeply as you need to. Inhale, halfway lift. So this movement is incorporated into a lot of classes because it's strengthening the muscles that line the spine. And those muscles keep the discs from, as we're compress, as we walk and sit and stand, these muscles are responsible to keep them nice and spacious. So let's give those muscles some help. Press into the feet, lengthen the spine. You can make this higher if you need to. So if you're feeling like, can't do this without bending my knees really deeply or losing it altogether, just build yourself a little tower. Good, breathe. Notice the length. And then fold. Don't be afraid to bend your knees here. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, fold. Inhale up. Exhale, fold. Good. Deep bend in knees. Press into all four corners of both feet. Slow motion reverse swan dive. All the way up. Hands to the heart. Hold here. Pause. Wiggle out the toes. Good. So now we're going to take it a little bit more into the space creating part of the spine. Press that out of the way a little bit. Take your feet wider than your hips. So maybe even as wide as the mat. Like a little ant on my mat. Go, bud. You don't want to step on me. See you later, bye. Okay. So feet wide, knees really, really bent. Think about that feeling in cat and cow where the pelvic bone is kind of tucked, and then roll down from there all the way into ragdoll. Now, calibrate this to your sensation by bending your knees as deeply as you need to, maybe resting your belly on your lap, and then either hold on to the ground like this or grab towards opposite elbows.
As you do this, the space is really created when you draw the shoulders away from the ears and then nod your head, yes and no. Rock your weight towards your toes. Keep breathing. Keep drawing the shoulders away from the ears. They'll constantly want to go into their gravity and just kind of crowd, so your shoulders might even touch your ears, but that's not creating the space in the cervical spine that we're looking for. Just draw the shoulders up towards the tailbone. Two more breaths. So this is strengthening the legs. It's creating space in the spine. It's bringing the heart rate down. Nod that yes and no. Open and close the jaw. Inhale as deeply as you can. Tuck the chin. Release the arms. Roll up slowly, bone by bone by bone. Roll out the shoulders. And then we're going to do just a few leg strengthening exercises. If you're like, no, I think I've got my fill, my spine got a little open, my chest got a little open, I got some nice digestive twists going on, see you later, you can turn me off, and that's fine. Maybe lay down, take a savasana once you turn me off though. Otherwise, I'm going to go through how standing postures can actually help take some pressure off of our sorest joints. So our low back, our hips, our knees, our ankles, those types of things. We can do these poses in a low impact way that still gets some strength into the stabilizer muscles. So from the back of your mat, just step the left foot forward. Try to get it as far forward as you can and straighten that leg. That right foot is grounded. It's at about a 45-degree angle. Now hands on your hips, close and open. So what that is referring to is hip points point towards the short edge of the mat, that's closed. Open is hip points point towards the wide edge of the mat. So just close and open and think about that idea of movement being lubrication. So the more you move in little mini angles and shift the weight and experiment with that range of motion, the more your joints will be equipped to handle any kind of work that you're asking them to do. So if you have a hard time bringing the hips to square, take the feet wider. So just take up space on your mat here. Good. And then the left toes are facing completely forward. The right toes staying at a 45-degree angle. Maybe you want to take a little bit more space in, the distance of the feet. So maybe that feels good to you. Maybe you get there and it doesn't feel good and you want to narrow your stance again. When I'm watching people do yoga in classes, one of the ways that I see people lose the strength and the balance of warrior poses is by keeping their feet too close together. None of us are, well, maybe not none of us, but a lot of us are body cautious that have pain, and that's for good reason, but you want to still kind of get to your edges because that's where the muscle is waiting to be, worked to support the joints. So look at this front leg to start. Keep pressing into the back foot, but let's bring our focus into the front foot for a moment. All 5 toes are forward. Draw the outer thigh back and the inner thigh forward. So that it's kind of a strange directive. How do you draw an inner thigh forward? Just think about it happening and your body will kind of adjust. Keep drawing that left hip back. Good. Now check in with your knee. In yoga classes you will hear a lot of times, like the knee should point straight over the second toe. As an owner of arthritic knees, it doesn't always happen for me that way. Put the knee somewhere above the heel and make sure that the leg is really strong and powerful, and then let that be your pose. Now, to engage the hamstring, press into the front heel. Really push it like you're trying to push through the mat. And now that hip and that leg is engaged. And all of these muscles, the quad, the hamstring, the abductor, all of those things are working harmoniously to support your hip, your knee, your ankle, etc. So from here, you can just hold and breathe and try to keep pressing into that back heel, or maybe lift the arms up. Maybe you're just doing kind of like 80s aerobic arms and just you just want to like go for it, or maybe you hold goalposts, or maybe if you want a chest opener, you reach towards opposite elbows behind you, or maybe you just hold on to opposite forearms and breathe. Good. Now, if this feels like all of a sudden your joints are getting kind of cranky, move. Put some movement into it. Just make sure that as you hold pauses, you keep drawing the outer edge of that left hip back. Good. Now release your hands. Slide that left foot back to the right. Both feet forward. Roll out the shoulders. Take the feet wider than the hips. Curve that back down to ragdoll.
Notice that there's sensation in the low back. If there's not a sensation of opening here, rock your weight towards your toes. Nod your head yes and no. This time, maybe grab towards opposite elbows again, or maybe you just orangutan arms here, or maybe you interlace the fingers, the back of the skull, and let the elbows come alongside the temples. Keep rocking your weight towards your toes. Good, let the hands go. Tuck the chin, roll up slowly.
Good. Step that right foot forward. So warrior one on this side. Start with movement. Ask yourself, can you open and close the hip? So open is facing the wide edge. Closed is facing the short edge. If closing the hips doesn't really work, take your feet farther apart widthwise. Keep pressing into that back edge of the back foot. Square hips. Notice that that outer thigh is coming back and the inner thigh is coming forward. Knee is relatively stacked on top of the heel. Lift up out of the waist. Press into the back heel. Maybe move the arms. Maybe hold on to opposite forearms or wrists or elbows to open up the chest. Think about the navel drawing into the backbone, keep pushing into that back heel, and then press like hell into that front heel. Keep breathing. Soften the jaw. Gaze is friendly. Press into that front heel. One more breath. Good. And then slide that foot back. Pop out the knees. Release the hands. Roll out the shoulders. Good. Step that left foot forward again. Drop the arch of that back foot. This time, the outer blade of the foot should be facing the back of the mat because we're moving into warrior two. So bend and unbend this front knee. This pose, for me, really helps my knee pain because it really builds a lot of strength in the leg muscles. The open hip thing feels dreamy to me. Obviously, if opening your hip here doesn't feel too great, give it some movement. Same way as before. Open and close. And then, think about that idea of as much width as you can find. We underestimate ourselves in a lot of different ways. In Warrior 2, I have seen a lot of very practiced yogis do this. And then when you do this, to sink into it, look at where my knee is going. That doesn't strengthen the muscles around the knee. That taxes the knee. So, in order to build a strength around the knee, you really need to take up some space. And then all of a sudden when you sink into it, your knee's where it should be. So sink into it. And then draw the outer hip back, or the outer edge of the thigh. The inner edge of the thigh comes forward. Inhale. Exhale, sink. Now, if this is too much for you, there's also an option of kind of micro bending the knee a little bit and then kind of taking your time into it. Or you can even slide, my stool is too low, but you can slide, like a folding chair is usually a good height, or some sort of stool under this hamstring and give yourself some support and then work on the strength, and then one day slide that out. So from here, maybe lift the arms, keeping the shoulders soft away from the ears. Pelvic floor to navel, navel to spine, heart is lifted up. Inhale. Exhale, press into both feet. Really, really pushing into both feet. Keep breathing. Now, if the stillness has your joints a little crazy, keep moving. Move the whole time. It's totally fine. Otherwise, hold still for just one more breath. Good. Now straighten this leg and just turn both toes forward. Bend the knees as deeply as you need to, and just give your hips a little bit of love. Good. We're just going to move to the other side. So drawing the back edge of the back foot down, sinking into the pelvic bone, lifting up when you feel like your arms need to go up. If they don't, just let them come down. If the goal of this practice is to strengthen the leg muscles, you don't need to bring the arms up. The arms up can open up your chest and strengthen the arms. It can feel a little bit more empowering in the pose, but it's up to you. So using some movement, sometimes it helps to actually visualize the leg bone moving in the hip socket. And then if you find stillness, press that foot deeply into the ground, the right foot. The heel in particular should be pushed, pushed, pushed. Push to the outer edge of the back foot. Deep, slow breaths. Each exhale is an opportunity to sink into it. Draw the right rib cage away from that right knee. Notice how that affects the sensation in that right hip. Good, and then just turn so that the toes are both facing the wide edge of the mat, and just bend a little bit. And then bring the feet back together, and bow up the knees. Come back to a seat. Resting the hands, softening the breath. Good. So from here, I'm just going to do a little bit more heart openers, and then I'm going to say farewell for the time being. Bring the fingers so that they are interlaced behind you. Elbows come out to the sides, and then draw the knuckles down and nuzzle the shoulder blades together. Try to bring the heels of the palms together. Good. Inhale here. Open mouth, exhale. Good, and then from here, maybe you fold and bring the knuckles up. Let the head hang. If this hurts the shoulders, just bring the knuckles back towards the ground, let the heels of the palms open up. You can also use a strap instead of interlacing the fingers. I don't have a strap, but you really don't need a strap. This is just the shirt that I came in wearing. Holding on to it. Just make sure that the shoulders are away from the ears. Again, you can really do this any old time. And then release. Roll out the shoulders. Circle out the wrists. Wiggle each finger. Good. Wide open arms, palms face forward, thumbs up, tuck the shoulder blades. Inhale. Exhale, right arm on top. Give yourself a squeeze. Try to use your fingertips to open up the shoulder blades. Really draw the shoulders down and in. Open. Deep inhale, exhale, left arm on top. Good, and then release. Let the work off. And then we're going to do a seated final relaxation. If you prefer to do a supine on your back, get on down there. I can't stop you. Hands down. Relax your belly. Close your eyes or find a soft gaze. And smooth out any texture in the forehead. So any of that constriction between the eyebrows, smooth that out. Trace the hairline and let there be softness. Thinking about the hinge of the jaw, relaxing the hinge of the jaw, softening the lips, and the teeth, and the tongue, relaxing the chest muscles and the shoulders, relaxing the elbow joints, the wrist joints, the palms, the fingers all the way to each tip of each finger, and the spaces between the fingers. Softening the belly, allowing it to open and relax. Softening both hips, the thigh bones, the knee joints, softening the calf muscles, the ankles and the Achilles, softening through the arches of the feet, the tips of the toes and the spaces between the toes. Noticing the breath moving up and down the body. And giving yourself a chance to be here in no hurry, with the only goal noticing the softness of your body. And then bringing your hands together at your heart. Pressing the thumbs to the chest. May the kindness we wish to see in this world begin with the kindness we extend to ourselves. Namaste. Thank you, everybody.